Good morning friends, welcome to PSIR Analytica. Today is 16 June 2022. We look into the questions which was posted in the morning. The question says that Indian constitution is unGandhian in nature, critically examine. Now first of all, how to approach this question? Here they have given an argument or they have given a viewpoint which says that there are some people who feel the present day Indian constitution does not have any form of Gandhian values in that regard. So you need to bring that argument first and try to write that why there is criticism that this constitution is unGandhian nature. Then you can analyze the argument and see that to what extent there is truth in this argument or what are the counter viewpoints which you can bring about. This will be the structure of the answer what you can write. Now let us start the question what we can write in the introduction part. In the introduction part, you can say that though Gandhi was the leader of the Indian national movement, but however, when the constitution was formed, many Gandhian followers say that his values have been not reflected in the Indian constitution, and you can start with the view of Shriman Narayan. One of the Gandhian follower, he has written an article called as, the book called as The Constitution of Free India. And in this particular book, he puts forward what are the ideas which Gandhi would have wanted in the Indian constitution based on his discussion with Gandhi. So in this book, he says that the Indian constitution famed on Gandhian values should be based on the principle of decentralization, based on village republics, where rights and duties are correlative, and it is also based on the principle of what we can say the Gandhian philosophy, which speaks about the rights of individual is supreme. So this is the central idea of Gandhian constitution. But however, he says that if you look at the present day constitution in that regard, the criticism is that why it is unGandhian in nature. One, you can write about there is the federal structure. If you see, it is more powers have been given to union government. So there is lot of centralization in that regard, and any kind of centralization leads to taking away the power of the people. Second one, there are many provisions such as preventive detention, which violates the rights of the individual or goes against the grain of Swaraj. Third one, the village republics or the what we can say the Gram Panchayats in that regard, they have been placed in directive principle of state policy which are non-justiciable in nature. Mainly they work as moral guidelines to the government of the day in that regard. Fourth one, duties were not even mentioned till Swaran Singh committee recommended in 1976, and moreover the fundamental duties is non-justiciable in nature, whereas Gandhian idea reflected that rights and duties have to be correlative. And fifth one, the emergency provisions in the Indian constitution, they go against the Gandhian principle of creating village republics in this regard. So that is why the criticism is there. The present Indian constitution is unGandhian in nature. It is more about copying of the British system in that regard. So basically India has adopted parliamentary democracy. So that is where Gandhi writes in his book Hind Swaraj. In his book Hind Swaraj, he would have written that British Parliament is like a sterile woman and can be equated to a prostitute. And if India adopts the British parliamentary system, basically India is not going to move on the right path in that regard. Gandhi had rejected the parliamentary democracy and he wanted more of the village republic idea to be adopted, which was not adopted by the present day Indian constitution. So Sriram Narayan says this was the constitution exactly which Gandhi would have rejected it. But you can see that you have to bring arguments that why many Gandhian ideas were not reflected in that regard. You can write the critical analysis to it. One, during the time of Constituent Assembly, Gandhi passed away. So one, when Gandhi passed away, basically many of Gandhian ideas didn't make inroads into that. Second one, the leaders of Constituent, because Gandhi was not part of the Constituent Assembly, whereas Nehru, Ambedkar were part of the Constituent Assembly, their ideas differed from Gandhi and Ambedkar. For example, Nehru rejected Gandhian idea of village republics because he says that how can a country like India, or how can it be practical for village themselves to work autonomously, because India needed some kind of military police in that regard to bring about any kind of protection from foreign aggression. On the other hand, Ambedkar, he was also critical of Gandhi's ideas of romanticism of villages in that regard, because he considered villages as sink of localism and den of ignorance. Hence, these are all theoretically very nice to read, but practically it's not possible. These are one of the possible reasons that why Gandhian ideas were not reflected. But at the same time, it is equally wrong to say that the constitution is completely un-Gandhian in nature. There are many Gandhian values which have been reflected in the constitution. For example, Article 40, it speaks about the panchayats. Article 43, which speaks about cottage industries in that regard. Then we can also see Article 17, abolition of untouchability, which leads every individual to lead a life with dignity in that regard. The provision of fundamental rights, also where Gandhi spoke about where every individual can protect his dignity against the absoluteness of a state. So there are many values of Gandhi which has been reflected in the constitution. So as Ambedkar himself said with respect to the directive principle of state policy, that any government which fails to implement these values will be answerable to the people in the next elections in that regard. So friends, these can be the the content which you can write in the answer. So you have to explain in parts, you have to tell why there is a view that the Indian constitution is un-Gandhian in nature. What are those parts of the Indian constitution which Gandhi would have rejected if he was alive when the constitution was passed? And then you have to tell why Gandhian ideas failed to make inroads into the constitution. And finally, you can also bring an argument saying that we cannot completely agree that it is completely an un-Gandhian constitution. But yeah, the Gandhian values have not, all Gandhian values have not made inroads into the present day Indian constitution, but however, they have acted as a guiding light to the Constituent Assembly. So friends, this can be the part of your answer. I hope you liked the video. So keep writing regularly. Okay, writing practice is key to score well in mains exam. No matter how well you speak or how well you know, it does not matter. It's all about how effectively you can present your answer, how effectively you can break down the demand of the question or address the demand of the question. This requires consistent practice in that regard. It requires constant revision in that regard. So that is why it is the main motto of this initiative is to make people write regularly political science answer. So with this, friends, we are coming to an end of today's video. So those who are looking for a test series in that regard, you have two options. Those who are planning to write in 2023, you can join our year-long test series which launched back in November, which is a flexible test series in that regard, which has total of 19 tests, which has 15 short tests and 4 full-length tests. And those who are clearing prelims, you can take up our mains test series, prelims, political science mains test series, which will be launched from June 25th. With this, I'm coming to an end. Take care and stay safe. I'll meet you tomorrow again.